Welcome, everyone. We're very grateful that you're here, whether you're here live or watching later. And just a note and reminder for us all that with gratitude, it's not happiness that brings us gratitude, it's gratitude that brings us happiness. And whether you're here watching live or later, Renee, Klaus, and myself will do our best to make your time well worthwhile. So the title of our presentation training tonight is Mindset Mistakes Smart People Make That Keep Them Worried, Anxious, and Stuck While in Isolation, and how to avoid these once and for all. And that's with, as I mentioned, Renee, Klaus, and myself. And Renee, we're very fortunate and grateful that she's joined us today. Renee is based out of Australia, very close to Sydney on the East Coast. And as you can see, her business name is LASENHORA. I don't have the best Spanish. And the mission of her business is to promote perfect health and well-being. She's a very vibrant, dynamic, loving, and open-minded person. And I'm really grateful that she's with us here today. So thank you very much, Renee. And moving on next, we're fortunate to have Klaus Klein. He's based out of Vancouver, Canada, on the west coast of Canada. And his business is KDK Counselling Inc. And he assists his clients in healing the past, living in the present, and creating their future. So thanks again, Klaus, for joining. We're really fortunate to have you here today. And as for myself, my name is Scott Walker. I'm based out of Banff, Canada. And my business is Tiaho.org. And the mission of Tiaho is to support and inspire people in fully shining their inner light with both their mental health and spirituality. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Renee, and she's going to discuss 6 ways to manage your well-being in isolation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so, as explained before, my divine mission is to promote perfect health, and actually came out of isolation from Melbourne, Victoria, and I left the state to enter Wollongong, a coastal town in New South Wales. So each state in Australia implements different lockdown measures. So I feel it is appropriate for me to share you my insight and to actually share something that a colleague of mine has decided to design, because she's actually based in lockdown Melbourne. Her name is Dr. Tammy Templehoff, but I have actually elaborated further than she did. The first option is embrace your feeling. It is absolutely completely normal to feel upset, angry, shocked, and overwhelmed. You simply surrender to your feeling, as it is healthy to acknowledge and to be heard. Recently, what happened in my synagogue at an AGM meeting, when the president was nominated, suddenly all the people who nominated before decided I resign. So I felt hurt. So I expressed my feeling. And it was so vital for me to embrace my feeling. And now that I've done it, I feel relief, balance after the episode. I accept the situation. More importantly, is I'm in good terms with the past committee member and the current president. The second one would be, let's keep up to a schedule. Now, just recently, I discovered the Pomodoro technique. Now, that was created a long time ago from an Italian, Francesco Cirillo. And why is it called Pomodoro because it's actually the shape. Pomodoro means tomato, which is, each timer was in the shape of a tomato. So the idea is that you schedule time and break. So the first thing is you allocate 25 minutes for a particular slot, for a particular task, whatever task you need to do. And then you take 5-minute breaks and you do that on a regular basis. For me, and I created a step-by-step daily routine. That's a schedule. So you see, once you have done that, you get up and you got a reason to get up, to shower, to take your breakfast, to wear smart clothes. And it helps you towards the concept of 20-80 rules. You spend 20% of your time, resulting in 80% of achievement. So it's very important to keep to schedule. Third, stay informed. Okay, I suggest once a day you spend about 10 to 30 minutes finding out the new measure that your government authority body have decided. It is very healthy to set boundaries, how long and how often. It is unhealthy to have your TV on 24 hours or looking at your mobile phone and spending time constantly looking at the news. Of course, you need to keep informed. You need to stay informed because you need to know the measure currently being used. Like, do you need to wear a mask? Is there curfew? What about the measure of gathering? Can you go out, exercise, and others? But limit it to 10 to 30 minutes a day. Fourth, self-care. I cannot more express the need of self-care. Yes, we want to help others, but our health comes first. You need to be self-centered. I didn't say selfish, self-centered. If you care for yourself, guess what? You can care for others. So what about a bath? What about going for a walk if you're allowed? What about doing some meditation? What about listening to music? Whatever makes you feel good. You can have a favorite coffee cup or tea cup. You also need to limit your time on the computer, which is back to number 2, keep up to schedule. Your time to listen to the news, that's number 3, stay informed. So the self-care allows you to recharge your battery. Number 5, connect with others. I'm really aware how challenging it could be for the grandkids to be with their grandparents, for the funerals to be conducted, for any wedding maybe to be cancelled or delayed, or only within a small gathering. But remember, physical distancing doesn't equate to social distancing. Today we have Zoom, which we just used. We got Skype, we got WhatsApp, we got FaceTime. Those are all tools that allow us to see each other. We might not be able to embrace, we might need to give a virtual embrace, but we can see each other. Please pick up the phone. Call that lonely sick person. Most people have a mobile phone. Few elderly people have got a landline. You can still ring the landline. You see, I personally lost contact with some of my friends, a very good friend, 2 friends in Melbourne, one from Spain and the other one from Australia. And it really concerns me a lot because they don't pick up the phone. Please reach out for people, it makes a huge, huge difference. Number 6, positive mindset. Well, this point is actually going to be addressed during the rest of this presentation. I just want to tell you that living in the now allows you to deal with the uncertainty of the future. You see, today, employer, and if you're looking for a job, employer are hiring people who have adaptability quotient. It's not anymore about IQ, intelligent quotient, or EQ, emotional quotient. It's about adaptability. Because 2020 is so different. It's like a new mindset. Let's have it positive. To develop such resilience, my 2 colleagues, Scott Walker and Klaus will express this mindset and how to cultivate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Renee. Appreciate you sharing those points. And for those of you watching, you may be curious how Renee, Klaus, and myself know each other. And Klaus and I have been friends for about 5 years. And we both met Renee in a private online mindset community. And that mindset community is essentially run by Andy Shaw. And Andy Shaw is an incredible mindset author. He has 2 books that are the core of his work. He does have other programs as well. He has a free online program called Footsteps Through Your Mind. And what we're doing today is we're going to go through a presentation that focuses on 1 chapter of the first book, which is called Creating a Bug-Free Mind. And this chapter is titled Why Worry? And the 3 of us did this exact same presentation for essentially a mastermind community within that mindset community. And we did that last month. And one of the people watching suggested, hey, maybe you guys should consider doing this as a public presentation. And we all thought that was a great idea. And that's why we're here today doing this. And we will post links for that once the video is uploaded. But by all means, if you'd really like to know how to find out about this book and or Andy Shaw and even other resources that he has, just please reach out to either Renee, Klaus, or myself. We'd be more than happy to share that with you. So myself, I'm going to go over a chapter summary here. And this chapter, Why Worry? It really focuses on, of course, the mindset of worrying. And if you see the cartoon there, it's got a man in a doctor's office, and the man has this big head. And he says, the doctor says, quite frankly, Mr. Cartwright, I think this disease is all in your head. And we're living in extremely difficult times right now with the pandemic. A lot of people that I know say that the mental stress is much, much worse than the potential physical possibility of having issues related to the pandemic. And, you know, when you're in a constant state of worry, that actually lowers your immune system and it lowers your immune response. And from a mindset perspective, not worrying frees up your creative energy. And, you know, worrying is a disease of the mind. I know that's easier said than done at times. However, the 3 of us, you know, Renee, Klaus, myself, we do focus on mindset on a daily basis, even a minute amount of kind of fine-tuning the motor. And by doing that, we're helping ourselves creating the life of our dreams. And I put in big bold letters there, I cannot create the life of my dreams if I worry. So just keep in mind that worrying holds back all your creative thought. And whether you're someone who's in a regular 9-to-5 job or a business owner, the more creative thought you're able to have, the better you will do at your chosen profession, and also the more enjoyable your life will be. Worrying is a socially acceptable habit. And right now, if you are someone who watches a lot of mainstream media, that is reinforced. So as Renee mentioned in her part of the presentation at the start, just keep in mind to really limit your news, because according to the mainstream media, it's okay to worry and it's socially acceptable to worry. And there's an author named Louise Hay. She was a pioneer in the self-help spiritual growth industry. And what she says is that every emotion we have has two cores, essentially. It's either an emotion of love or of fear. So the more time you're spending worrying, the more time you're spending in fear. And whatever your dominant thought will become your reality. Whatever happens provides you a benefit. And just remember to keep your desire in focus, yet be detached from the outcome. So there's a little cartoon on the side there, and it's from Peanuts. And it says, worrying won't stop the bad stuff from happening. It just stops you from enjoying the good. And we attract what we're trying to avoid. So, I mean, we've all probably been in that position where you feel a little sniffle, and you have one of two options. You can either tell yourself you're getting sick, or you can tell yourself that you're not going to be sick. And in my experience, when I've told myself that I'm getting sick, I often get sick. So, just remember, we attract what we're trying to avoid. Choose to accept what is, and therefore become powerful. Acceptance is something that personally I've really worked on the last year or two. I've still got a little ways to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm not at like a Zen monk level with acceptance. However, I do feel that the more acceptance I've chosen to accept, that I do feel more powerful, and I feel more grounded and more confident in myself. And enjoy your mistakes. There again, that's something I'm not 100% there. However, I am getting better. And mistakes, as long as we're learning from them and not beating ourselves up about them, you can actually enjoy your mistakes. And one thing Andy says in this chapter is, if you desire to increase your rate of success, double your rate of failure. And a quote that I put at the bottom there is from chapter 6, and it says, I am making my mind the most welcoming place for success and wealth to flow into. So it's a great quote to bring to mind at any point. And on this slide, we've got a little comic of Homer Simpson, who does many, many foolish things in The Simpsons. And Homer says, you will do foolish things, but do them with enthusiasm. So that's Homer. And there's two key questions to ask yourself. And this is directly related to worry. So whether you're watching live or later, highly suggest you take a note of these questions. The first one is, what problem do I have right now? And that brings you to being present, and it brings you to really focusing on what is truly important in your life right now. And the second question is, what do I have to worry about right now? So both of those questions, they allow you to either deal with your problems or accept them, as there is no worry. So really, really encourage you to, take a note of the graphic on this slide. And it says, do you have a problem in your life? Yes or no? And everything leads back to, then why worry? And I don't know about anyone out there, but I know for me, most times in my life, the overwhelming majority of times in my life, when I've worried about something that hasn't happened yet, it did not end up happening. So just keep that in mind as well, and just think to yourself, okay, out of all the times I worried about something happening, did it actually happen? So my experiences with the different aspects of worrying, personally, my father died of colon cancer at 42 when I was a child, and my mom had breast cancer. So when I was in my 20s and up until early 30s, every time I saw a doctor, they reminded me that I was at a high risk for cancer. And I'm not discrediting those doctors, but as you can imagine, that implanted like a worry seed. Almost every time I saw a doctor, they're like, you're at a high risk for cancer. You're at a high risk for cancer. And I'm really grateful and fortunate that at this point in time, I have actually outlived my dad by 5 years. And like say, once I was in about mid-30s, I started tuning out what those well-meaning doctors were telling me, because what I realized is that the more I tell myself that I'm at a high risk for cancer, the greater chances that I will bring cancer into my life. And another thing that I always used to really worry about was just how I looked. You know, when I was in my early 20s, I started going bald. And as you can see, I have a luscious head of hair here. And, you know, I was someone that was always doing like the comb. And it's like, anytime there's a wind, it's like, well, I had to get in the mirror and use my comb. And I was always worried about how my hair looked. I'm like, oh, maybe someone's going to think I'm going bald. And then when I look back from pictures of that time, it's absolutely ridiculous because it was obvious that I was going bald. And once I finally started cutting my hair short, I didn't worry about it anymore. And I actually had a few people tell me that I looked better with very short hair, which was great. And that was males and females alike. And I thought I just looked ridiculous, like a cue ball. So those are my two big examples of worrying in my life that I don't have anymore. And there's many techniques that I've used to train myself out of the worry habit. A big one is, and it's an Andy Shaw tool and technique, is when a thought goes into my mind that's causing fear or worry, is I'll ask myself, is this thought helping me or hurting me right now? So that's a question you could consider taking note of. Is this thought helping me or hurting me right now? Yeah, and then how my life was when I worried, I pretty much covered that already. Like I said, when I did worry, I often worried about either getting cancer or people looking at me thinking I'm going bald. And essentially, I was not comfortable with myself. I was often thinking about what other people were thinking of me. I was thinking about worst case scenarios, health related to the cancer. So I was essentially not living in the present very often. I was often in the future, and it was a fear-laden future. And I'm really fortunate and grateful now that I'm predominantly living in the present. I still get pulled to the past and the future at times. However, I do find in general, it's being grateful for the past of things that happen, and it's being excited and not attached to future that I'm envisioning. So as I mentioned, my life now that I predominantly don't worry is that I'm able to be much more grounded, much more centered, much calmer, much less anxiety, anxious feelings. And I'm able to really enjoy the moment, whether I'm on my own or with family or friends. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Klaus, and he's going to go over overcoming the disease that keeps 99% of people poor.
All right, Scott, can you put us back to full screen? Thank you. So then I can go to my screen share. Wait, oh no, I can go to my slides. All right. Whoops. All right, so I had a couple of slides here ready to go, but we had some technical problems, so we're not going to show those slides, but I'm going to go over them just verbally. So I want to talk about the context of worry and what happens to us when we worry, and we'll do this in 3 parts. So this is the first part of this, and it's the worry bug. Now, what's the benefit of working on yourself in becoming worry-free? Like, what's in it for me? If I don't worry, what's the purpose of that? Because like Scott had mentioned earlier, it is a very acceptable thing in our society to worry. There's been other readings I've read about we are the only creature on this earth that worries. Animals don't worry. Zebras and deer do not worry about getting eaten by a lion. They focus, they're aware, and when the lion comes, they run. They just deal with it in the moment. But they don't wake up every day going, when's the lion coming? What if a lion comes? And so we're the only creature that does that. So the benefit of learning what to do with your worry and how not to worry is, well, one thing, it gives you a longer, healthier life, and that's probably most people hear about. It frees up your creative energy to actually find solutions and options to whatever you're dealing with. And as Scott mentioned that earlier too, it frees up your creative energy. And then it also increases your success in manifesting your desires. So by worrying less, frees up the creative energy to find solutions and options that gets you where you want to go. Now, according to Psychology Today, that's a magazine. That's a good one. It says worry tends to be more focused on the thoughts in our heads, while anxiety is the more visceral, what we feel. We feel it throughout our bodies. And I wanted to bring that up because it's not just all, our thoughts are going in our head, but it's also what we feel on the inside. And often that's the anxiety that's attached to worry in our bodies. And I get a couple of weeks ago, I got an email, and it was from a service provider that sends me clients, and they're restructuring, and it's going to impact how many clients they send me. And as I read that email, I could actually feel in my body the chest was tightening up. And then from there, my mind went, what if? What if I don't get, they stop sending clients? Or what if I get less clients? What if? All that was going on. And I was aware of this loop that was going on. I feel it in my body, the chest tightening up and tingling, and my thoughts go into what if, which goes back to my chest more tingling, which goes back into my mind, what if, and it goes around and around. We get caught in that like hamster wheel. So I just want to make everybody aware, I just bringing up that where in your body do you feel it? Like I feel it in my chest. Some other people feel it in their gut or their lower part of the body, or they feel it all over. Just be aware of what's going on physically. And that's usually, then it's attached to the loop and the mindset of what if, what if. There's a saying that says, what worries you masters you. And what's the cost of worrying? And I think Scott had mentioned some of this earlier. When you worry, the energy is taken away from your creativity. So in other words, worrying contracts your energy. Okay, being relaxed and focused expands, worrying contracts. That's the cost of worrying. And then it's much more difficult to move forward in your life and actually find the solutions. And the other cost is you have a shorter and less healthier life. And so now many things we worry about have become so constant and so subtle that it's almost a part of you. And Scott gave that good example of the doctors telling him, like, hey, you're got a high risk for cancer. And that was going on in the minds of people. It happened with Scott. It can happen to a lot of people to get told that. And it wasn't until later that Scott said, hey, let me look at that. Let me look at that constant worry and let me deal with it in a different way. Because by worrying about it actually lowers your immune system and you're more likely to get sick in that way. But so be careful about, be aware of the subtleties. Like the big worries, those are easy. Easier, I should say. I can find those. But then there was the subtle ones that I had to get deeper and deeper and expose them and observe them and then release them. So to worry, in other words, it hijacks your mind from actually finding a creative solution or direction that takes you forward in life. So there's the body visceral experience, which is lightness, tightness, sharpness, tingling, frustration, disappointment. And underneath that is a lot of fear. And the mind goes into what if, and even more worry, gets into more worry loop with that. So we got the mind, body going into that loop. And we're going to talk a little bit later. I'm going to show an example of my experience in my life when I got into that loop. And it happened at a very young age, and it continued to adulthood until I was aware of it, which is a very common thing for many people. We learn a lot of this when we were children growing up, and then it's a part of our body, it becomes a part of our thought process. And then as adults, life starts to happen and we get triggered and we get worried as if that, and that's really a normal response. But we're saying here is human beings are the only creature that actually worry. All right, I'm going to hand this over to Renee.
Scott?
Scott, you're on mic.
Yeah, I'll just bring that slide up again here.
Thank you. Oh, it's a big one. We just discussed what happened to two of my colleagues. And really, from an unknown source, it's if you cannot help worrying, remember that worrying cannot help you. I repeat, if you cannot help worrying, remember that worrying cannot help you. So the point is, let us deal with what we worry about at the time we have to deal with it. Give you an example. I moved from lockdown Melbourne to Wollongong, which is less lockdown in a different state of Australia. Most of my Melbourneian friends said to me, but where are you going to have accommodation? Where are you going to stay? Have you booked a hotel? Have you booked a self-contained apartment? Blah, blah. They are warriors. And I said, no. I just took the train. I arrived first thing in the morning, plunked myself in, that's probably not English, put myself, I'm Spanish by the way, put myself in a cafe, linked my laptop, and just look for accommodation. Guess what? That same night, I became officially the resident life coach of a college at the University of Wollongong. Imagine if I had worried, oh, what about my friend? I'm writing this and that. No, I did it at the time I had to. Another example that Andy Shaw mentioned in his book, it's regarding a lost check. He gave a check to his beloved mother, and his mother will misplace it. She was hysterical. Now, he said, it's okay, Mom. Contact the bank. We cancel that check, and I'll just write you a new check. Done. So everything you have in your mind either takes you towards what you desire or away from it. Nothing stands still. That's exactly what Scott mentioned. Is it congruent to what I wish to create? So, worrying give us nothing whatsoever at all worth having. So please do yourself a favor, whatever. Stop worrying.
Thank you, Renee. And I'm going to talk about kicking the habit. So what I'm going to do is share my experience, what's helped me, and I'm optimistic that it might help you. And what I share, you may have heard before, you may not have heard before. But I'll just say that if I go back in time 10 years, I used to start my day by having a super loud alarm, running out of bed, running to the shower, having a quick shower, quick shave, quick bite to eat, and literally running out the door. So it was literally go, 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 right from the start of my day. And I did find that at that time in my life, I consequently had many more anxious thoughts. I had many more fearful thoughts, and it seemed like I was kind of going from crisis to crisis in my head. The way I start my day now is, even if I've had like 2 hours sleep, which doesn't happen too often, but I will make sure I take a couple minutes to just start my day in a gentle way. And I am someone that does energy work, so I usually do that. Sometimes I'll just do a bit of deep breathing for a minute, and it's just to start my day in a calm way. And then as the day goes on, when I do have a fearful thought, I often ask that question that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Is this thought helping me or hurting me? So for me, like when Klaus was talking about where in your body you feel the fear, I feel the fear in, like, I guess it's hard to see, but right here, like in my, just below my, where my ribs meet. And whenever I feel that, I know that I'm in a state of worry. I know that I'm in a state of fear. And I know that I may or may not also be in a state of anxiety or anxious thoughts. So whenever I feel that, I tell myself to take a breath, to feel my body, to ask that question or another question, like, how is this helping me? Or why am I worrying about this right now? And when I do those things more and more and more, it helps me. And another thing that's really helped me to mostly kick the habit, because I'm not 100% free of worry and fear. But another thing that's really helped me to mostly kick the habit is Andy Shaw's resources, his books, his audios, his online mindset community. For me personally, it's been invaluable. And if this content that we're covering right now is resonating with you, I'd highly suggest you check out Andy Shaw. I can't say enough good things about him. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Klaus, and he's going to talk about what's the biggest illusion that worrying creates.
All right, thank you, Scott. Scott, can you get me back into full screen? There we go. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to give a more concrete example of what happens in the body and the mind around worry and the illusion around that. And so as this child, there was a time that constricting my energy and creativity happened around a homework assignment. That was like in grade 5 or something. And I had some difficulties in school. I got this low mark, and I had this homework assignment. And parents, and this is for those who have parents and kids, be aware of this, parents can project their worrying thoughts and the what if statements onto their kids. And children are very sensitive to the parents' energy. And in my case, I was no different. The parents, that I had, well-meaning, lovely people they were, there was that anxiety and worry, and I was sensitive. I could feel that, and I picked up on that. And that is like a tuning, like a vibration. I would tune into that, and I would think that's the way it is. That's the way I'm supposed to be. And so I could feel through my parents, their voice, their yelling, their facial expressions, their anxiety. It just fueled my own anxiety and worry in my body. And then my body was experiencing visceral feelings and anxiety connected to fear and frustration around this homework assignment that I was struggling with. And because I was struggling, which then caused more worry and anxiety, and of course, the more worry and anxiety, the more I struggled, and I got into that loop. And then I went into my mind, started going, what if I can't get this right? What if my answer is wrong again? Because I had to go out and show my parents the answer. What if I disappoint my parents again? And so on and so forth. What if I'm not smart enough? And as I'm thinking that, I'm causing more worry and stress, which again, as I said earlier, it contracts your energy. So you can't even get a solution. You're lucky if you do. So this created a loop in my body. And I'm sure that other people have had that experience too, where the more you worry, the more constricted you get, the more you can't even find the answer. And then if it escalates, you go into a panic attack. And so that, you can see that does this, I asked myself as an adult, does this mind, focus, and worry help me in any way being creative and finding a solution? to my challenge at any moment in time? And the answer, of course, is no. So going back to childhood, what happened to me was, I had tears in my eyes, I was shaking, I was just all bundled up and worrying, and I'm going to get in trouble, and if I'm, what if I'm not smart enough, what if I get it wrong again, to a point where finally I became mentally and emotionally exhausted, so that I surrendered and relaxed. And I say surrender and relax here, I don't mean, that it was a fun trip at all. I surrendered a lot because I got so mentally, emotionally exhausted. And I could just feel my body just relax because there was nothing left. And as my body relaxed, my mind relaxed, it cleared up. And at that moment, as my mind relaxed, because I wasn't thinking about what if anymore, I looked at my assignment on my desk and the solution became clear. And of course, then I got the solution and I showed my parents and my parents were happy. So it was this big, happy feedback, like, wow, I got the answer finally. And the illusion here is that I have learned through a bodily experiences, through worry and anxiety, until I get exhausted, and then the answer comes, the solution comes. And they were what's called enmeshed. They were together. And that was the illusion that I carried even into adulthood. That I would just get all worried and anxiety until I get exhausted, and finally the solution comes. And so I learned that that's really doesn't have to be that way. To, like I say, there's the solution and there's worry and anxiety, and they were enmeshed, to what's called de-enmesh them. If there's a situation, or I should say, if there's a situation or something needs to be dealt with, focus and concentration is what needs, not worry or anxiety. That doesn't help. So I de-enmesh them. So I don't have to get frustrated about it. I just need to focus on it. And then if I learn from there, I can learn if a problem came up, I learned to start training myself. First, relax. Like go right to relaxation. Don't go into worry and anxiety and get exhausted to relax. Go into relaxation and surrender, clear the mind, then the solution or options start to come up. So the illusion that they have to worry about a problem to get a solution, that is the illusion. We don't need that. We need to go into relaxation, surrender, and that's how it leads to a solution or options. A tiger or a lion stalking a prey does not worry about what if I don't get the prey. They focus on here and now. They either get it or they don't. If they get it, they eat. If they don't, they try again. There's no worry involved. We're the only ones that worry with the what if. Okay. All right. That's my section there. I'm going to hand this over back to Renee.
Sorry about that. Little tech glitch here. My apologies. There we go. Okay, so Renee is going to talk about overcoming the feeling of being powerless.
And I think I'm going to do like my friend Klaus and ask to have the full view.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't see myself, but that's okay, fine. So literally, the question is, what does it mean to be powerless? What does it mean to be powerful? And what does it mean that it's a conscious choice? Will Rogers says, worrying is like paying on a debt that may never come due. I repeat, Will Rogers says, worrying is like paying on a debt that may never come due. So, as we discussed before, the media tell us, well, there's no hope. I mean, look at the current situation, 2020. There's no hope. Is there going to be a vaccine? It's not going to be a vaccine. Anyway, we are powerless. Let's follow the government. Okay. And the media loves to feed on warrior. Like we discussed, what's happening, 99% of people worry. A lot or less. So you have the power. You can choose if you want to be powerless or if you want to be powerful. With acceptance of what it is comes absolutely power. The power is our conscious choice. The problem is right now is that we attract, or shall we say create, what we are trying to avoid. So guess what? We end up living and fulfilling prophecy. What we think becomes our reality. Guess what? If you think you're powerless, well, you are. But if you think you're powerful, you are too. I know today you might feel powerless. And that's because previously you made the wrong choice. You did. You were asleep. You didn't know until now maybe that you have the choice between powerless or powerful. Now, you are awake. And you cannot be forgiven again if you continue to stand by your choice of being powerless. I'm going to give you a very personal example. Dating. Well, dating, yeah. I made the wrong choice. I decided to be powerless. I decided that the guy had to provide everything. He had to make me happy. He had to come to Australia. And so I purportedly, because I thought I was powerless and I gave him all the power, guess what? I didn't attract the right guy. Until recently, I realized, hey, I'm powerful here. I can choose who I date, when I communicate. I can set healthy boundaries. It was all in my mindset. And guess what, guys? Most, God's willing, in a few days' time, is manifesting himself in Molonga. But that's because I make the choice to be powerful.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate that. And the next part I'm going to cover is, why do you worry about what others think? And in terms of that, in my experience, like I mentioned earlier, I used to be someone who was very, very, very concerned about what other people thought. And I'm going to give a couple examples for all of you right now to consider. So in terms of what others think during this time, during the pandemic, you know, like even Klaus in a different part of Canada, there's different rules where he lives than where I live. And of course, different rules from where Renee lives in Australia. And I mean, personally, what I feel is the best plan of attack, essentially, in terms of not worrying about what others think during this pandemic time, is to be a rational thinker about, you know, what you're intaking, as Renee talked about before. So again, it is a repeat, but it's a purposeful repeat. Be very, very, very conscious of how much news you're taking in. Because I'll just say, in my experience, the people I know who are worrying the most right now, sadly, are people that are following news the most. So for me, I barely follow the news, and the odd time I'll get into a conversation with somebody and they'll tell me what's going on in the news, and I'll tell them, oh, I didn't know that. And they'll look at me kind of weirdly and kind of laugh sometimes. And I just say to them, hey, I put my energy into other things. I put my energy into creating and into really being mindful of what's going into this little noggin up here. And, you know, obviously for big things going on in the news, I know what's going on. Like I know the wildfires right now in Oregon, etc. But bottom line is, I really don't care what others think about me not following the news, because, as I say, the major things I will find out regardless. And the minor things, in my experience, all those are going to do is to enhance my worrying and to encourage me to worry more. So I know the last job I had, I was a server, but when this pandemic hit, and you know, I worked with some people that they just could not get over the fact that I wasn't following the news. And this one coworker of mine, she was like in a constant state of panic. And I talked to her a few times, and I just said to her, like, how is this helping you? She's like, what do you mean? We have to know what's going on. I said, well, yes, it's good to know the major things that are going on. However, if you're constantly on your phone, digging deeper and deeper and deeper, getting more and more and more information about what's going on, that is really not helping you, because you're now in a state of panic. And I said that from a state of love and support, because I care about her. And I did my best to do it in a non-judgmental way. However, it really hurt me to see this young woman just constantly on her phone, constantly finding out more stories, constantly hearing about what's going wrong in the world. And she thought it was so weird that I wasn't doing the same. And I honestly didn't care what she thought, because I thought, you know what? I have to look after myself. I have to look after my mind. And you know, I have some extended family that they can't get over when I meet them that I don't follow the news. They just can't wrap their head around that. And I've let that go. It's like, I just tell them, you know what, I would rather do other things than be consumed with that. And that being said, I am someone who, since the pandemic started, I look into more non-traditional news sources. And I don't, at the present time, I don't dive deep into it. But I just like seeing some alternative news, because quite often, in my experience, I get a different story from what's being told. So that may or not resonate with you. I'll just say that for me, that I'm really grateful that we live in a time where we have alternative news sources that are, I'll just say, not funded by certain agendas. And I'll keep it at that. So I'm going to move on to our next point here, which is Klaus, and he's talking about, why do you worry about making mistakes?
Thank you, Scott. You know, you were talking about, you know, staying off of media and news, and through most of my adult life, I don't subscribe to a newspaper, and even online. And every once in a while, I'll go into, you know, I'm an adult. I should read the newspaper because that's what adults do. And I had a subscription to the New York Times. It was online. It was like $4 a month, really cheap. And every day they had articles. I thought, you know, I'm an adult. I should learn. I should read this stuff. And after 2 months, I canceled the subscription because I got bored. It's the same stuff over and over again. One thing, same thing, just different names from parts of the world. And I also noticed that what it was doing to me, just even 5 minutes, never mind the 10 o'clock half-hour news that, you know, other people look at, just even 5 minutes of me reading some news articles every day, I could feel my body constrict, my energy go down. And I don't need it. I mean, the news that it's important, it'll find me one way or another. All right, so why worry, you know, do you worry about making mistakes? Now, most of us have been programmed, at least I have, and I know other people have, programmed from parents, teachers, religion, etc., that making mistakes is bad. Even as a teacher, I used to teach high school, and I was very aware that, you know, students would really hesitate because they didn't want to make a mistake. And I would love it when kids, you know, they give me an answer. I'm happy they even participated. You know, if they participated, and if the answer wasn't what I was looking for, I say, well, thanks for trying. Anybody else have an answer? You know, I wouldn't say that's wrong and it's bad. I was like, thanks for asking. You know, thanks for participating. It means you're thinking. You know, it means you're throwing out ideas, and I would encourage that. So we're programmed that mistakes are bad, but we're not really taught to actually, you know, learn from mistakes in a rational way. We're just taught don't make them, which creates a lot of worry because don't make mistakes, but it's inevitable. So then most of us have learned to fear mistakes because of programming and the emotional element attached to making mistakes. Because there's the mistake and then there's the emotions that are connected with it. Now, successful entrepreneurs, as Scott mentioned, like Andy Shaw and many others, you know, they write about, you know, they like to make mistakes. They plan on making 100 times more mistakes than they are making now. You know, and I hear that, and you know, normally I would go, wow, that's easy for you to say. However, it's not about being foolish or reckless. It's how to be different with mistakes. Because in training is mistakes are bad, don't make mistakes. But then we got to change over to how to be different with mistakes. Because if mistakes are bad, don't make mistakes, that creates the worry, that creates the anxiety, that creates also the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment around that, all those emotions. Mistake and the emotions get enmeshed again, get attached. So we got to de-enmesh that. And there's several questions you can ask, but I'm going to give you three basic questions. And if you do one of these questions, it can help you. You have, you know, mistake, and you have the emotions about, you know, if you make a mistake, oh, embarrassment, shame, guilt, and then I'm stupid and all that, and that's all together. We're going to separate that. So there's a so-called mistake, and we're going to ask ourselves a different question. We're going to say, you know, what would I do differently next time? Or how would I do it differently next time? Or how can I improve for next time? You know, those three questions. And there's other questions too, other ways of framing it. Kind of put those questions with a mistake. I make a mistake. What will I do differently next time? How will I improve it? Or how can I be different next time? Get your mind to focus on that, because then you don't have the guilt and shame and anxiety. You have only learning and progress. And it takes some practice, but just understand mistake, shame, guilt is enmeshed. Pull it apart. Mistake happens. How can I do differently? What will I do differently next time? And that can reduce the worrying and the shame and the guilt around that. It does take practice because we've been programmed one way. Practice, practice, practice. That's the magic secret. People say, oh, what's the secret to being enlightened? Practice, practice, practice. I'm always practicing this too. I don't have it perfect, but practice. Okay. All right. Hand this over to Renee.
Yeah, so Renee's going to talk about stop worrying. It takes you out of harmony.
Yes. So Roger Batson. Apologies, I'm Spanish. So if things go wrong, don't go with them. I repeat. Roger Batson said, if things go wrong, don't go with them. We just heard from my two colleagues how they choose not to be involved with the social media. And a lot of comments also get through. That's where you can use your power to choose to make that conscious choice. But in general, almost 100% of people worry. Either they worry a lot or most of the time. If you're honest with you, it's most of the time. Now, you actually, by doing that, you actually don't have a choice of if you want to achieve your desire. You have to acquire the skill how to never worry again. Never worry again. No. So the first thing, you observe. You observe what's going on. The second thing, you can relax. That's part of the point of self-care. You just relax. The third thing, you stop. You literally stop. You're in the moment. You stop. Then you allow, which is my point, to embrace the feeling. And eventually, you surrender, which is what we are creating, positive mindset. Surrender to what it is. You literally, and I know it's a little bit esoteric, but you are allowing your subconscious to retake control. Because you see, if you worry about something, guess what? It's going to happen. You are asking it to happen. And your ego loves the way it is. It really doesn't like new things. That's getting outside your comfort zone. So, because he wants to protect you. He wants to protect you from changes. And yet, that's where your future lies. Otherwise, guess what? In 5 years' time, you will not be further down to the road. I'm going to give you a personal example. Unbeknownst to me, when I moved from Spain, I went to Melbourne in Victoria, City of Victoria in Australia. And, you know, you make friends, you're part of a community, you know, you do things. But yes, guess what? It was so comfortable. Oh, comfortable. I pick up the phone, I can do this, and that. And I became so comfortable that I actually didn't grow. And so I said, hold on. What am I creating here? I'm creating the statu quo, easy going. So what I did, I said, things are going wrong here. It's locked down in Melbourne. I can't go anywhere. I can't do my business. I can't meet people. And I said, okay, that's it. You move out. And so I actually move out. No, I had all my warrior friends saying, you can't do this, you will get the virus. My caramba, you can't do this. And say, stop. Because what I did, I observed it wasn't working. I relaxed about the fact that, oh, what's going on here? I stopped and I said, this is not working. I allow the move and then I surrender. And I'm here. And I create my website. I create my business name. And I'm part of Loving Tribe. And there's 2 people there that I know, Tamata and Theodora, which I believe belong to the same community, tribe. But it was the fact that I realized, what's the point? Why? Really, my 2 questions about, what do I have to worry about right now? Second, what problem do I have right now? So, problem is either dealt with or accept. So why do you worry? You dealt with it, you accept it, you don't worry.
Thank you very much, Renee. And for those of you watching live, if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We won't be able to get to all your questions during this presentation training. That being said, we will be happy to respond to them once the YouTube video has been uploaded. So if you do have any questions specific to what you're going through, specific to your worry, your thoughts, your patterns, your concerns, how to potentially change that, etc., feel free to type them in the chat, because I'll be saving the chat, and like I say, we'll be happy to respond to those once the YouTube video has been uploaded. And I trust that for the presentation so far that you've received value from this. Renee, Klaus, and I all had that desire for whoever watches this to get value from it, and to ideally get tangible ways to decrease your worry. So I'm optimistic that you have received some nuggets. Could be one thing, two things, three things, could be an idea. It could be a story that one of us shared that resonated with you or inspired you. So I'm optimistic that you have received value from this part of the presentation already. And like I say, even if you have feedback about the presentation, we'd love to hear it. So please type it in the chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube at a later time, please comment below the video. We greatly appreciate the feedback and comments and questions. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Renee, and she's going to talk for a few minutes about how you can connect with her if you would like to. And take it away, Renee.
Thank you. For those who knows me already, you know that I'm passionate about promoting perfect health, and health means anything. It's not just physical or mental or emotional or spiritual. It's really a package. I believe in the holistic approach. So I just started my website. There's several ways you can contact me. The first one is through LinkedIn. The second one is through Facebook. The third one is through an email. I literally am offering half an hour complimentary session about the issue you are dealing right now at this moment. So it's very pertinent to this particular presentation. What is maybe your biggest worry, your biggest concern, your biggest stress? And then I will create actually a step-by-step program. I just want to say it's not a quick fix. It might take 3, 6, 12 months to actually change the habit, because all of us, we actually have learned the back-free mind concept of Andy Shaw for many, many years. And like Scott mentioned, it's about practice, practice, and practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. And moving on to Klaus, he's going to talk about how you can connect with him if you would like to.
Thank you, Scott and Renee. Yeah, so basically what you see right there, email me. My website's there also. Best way to contact me is through email or call me. And like as written there, you know, I work with people that heal the past, live in the present, and create their future. There is also, I have an opt-in for a free report that anybody who wishes they could opt in, they can get the free report. It's mental health and vision-driven mindset, and what that can, and the report just gives you some direction on what to do with that. And then also there's a free mini email practice, and you can get that also for free. Just opt in, and then we'll get that started. And so I'm going to hand it over to Scott.
Thank you, Klaus. And my apologies for those of you watching live and watching the recording. My internet briefly paused there, so we didn't get to hear quite everything that Klaus said. So what I would suggest is just definitely check out the website that's noted, and you'll be able, or reach out to him as well. And for myself, my business is Tiaho.org. And for those of you who are not aware, Tiaho is a Maori word, the indigenous people in New Zealand. And Tiaho is about having the light shine. And for me, it's about having the light shine from within. And I have a very personal connection to New Zealand. My father came from there, and I'm a dual citizen with Canada and New Zealand. And the mission of my business is to support and inspire people in fully shining their inner light with both their mental health and spirituality. And specifically with mental health, I focus on people diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That being said, I do have resources on my website that I feel can help anybody, whether they have a mental illness or not. I have 2 resources that you can check out. One is called the Calm My Mind Toolkit, and that's free of charge. There's no opt-in or anything. And essentially the Calm My Mind Toolkit is to help calm your mind down when you're feeling anxious, when you have worry, fear, etc. It's essentially a set of tools. And another resource I have on my website is called the Lift Me Up Toolkit. And that's to assist you when you're feeling down, having a bad day, feeling mildly depressed. And those are tools to help lift your mood. And on the homepage of my website, if you just click on resources, it'll take you to those. And at the bottom of the homepage on Tiaho.org, there's links to my YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you'd like to connect in any way, please do. I have a number of playlists on the YouTube channel specific for mental health. And I also have a playlist for something called Universal Sphere, and that relates to spirituality. So Universal Sphere is an energy tool that I learned 4 years ago and that I now teach. And I do sessions for people one-on-one. And it's a tool that's allowed me to be very grounded and have a full sense of trust that I am fully supported. And that, of course, depends on your belief system. But I'll just say that for me, it's made a world of difference. And it's something that I use on a daily basis. So if you're curious to learn more about what I do, just go to tiaho.org. And once again, for those of you who are here live, we really, really, really appreciate you coming here today. And we're actually finishing a little bit early, believe it or not. And that's nice, actually. So we do thank you for coming. And if you're watching later, thank you for watching. And just remember to have fun. One thing that Andy Shaw says is a quote that he reminds himself all the time. I don't even know if it's a quote. Maybe he created it himself. But he says that he's always delighted with himself. And when we're in a sense of delight with our life and our day, we do have more fun. We enjoy the journey. We enjoy the moment. So I admit I can be too serious at times, especially on video, but just remember to have fun. So take care. Please reach out to Renee, Klaus, or myself if you'd like to explore potentially working with us further or any resources we have. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.